Quotes&life. When we think of Confucius, we often picture a teacher who believed in teaching according to one's ability, or a great sage who won people over with his virtue. But such an image, widely respected and even politically powerful, raises a question. Could a mere educator achieve this? Let me tell you about the real Confucius and his life. The real Confucius was a man of extreme cunning. Now imagine this. Your name is Yan Qiu, born in a rural part of Khufu in the state of Lu. Never having seen your father, bearing only your mother's surname. Fatherless children are always easy targets. No kid in the village would play with you. They would throw stones, mockingly calling you fatherless. You and your mother, clinging to each other for survival. The few remaining pieces of land have been occupied by village chiefs for a long time. Life was tough, but your mother would often whisper, telling you that your father was a nobleman. If he acknowledged you, you'd be a young noble, and those who scorned you would tremble with fear, begging for your forgiveness. So you often dreamed of revenge as a nobleman. But the people class system was rigid. The divide between commoners and nobility was wider than between humans and dogs. Your noble father would never recognize an illegitimate child like you. Then, your father died, which might have been your biggest break. He had many wives and daughter, but no sons, leaving you, his abandoned, illegitimate child, as his sole heir. Nobility was hereditary, and without an heir, estates were reclaimed, wealth divided. This was your chance, an opportunity to claim your identity of aristocratic descent. When you was 15, the one person you relied on most, your mother, passed away. It was then you saw your chance. Ordinary folks back then were treated as nothing. A cheap coffin was all the dead got. But you decided to do something different for your mother's funeral. You invited the entire village. There in front of her coffin, you poured out your story, how your father abandoned you and your mother, leaving you in misery. Dressed in mourning clothes, you clutched the coffin and wept until my voice broke. Everyone there was moved. They felt for you, cursing the Kong family for their cruelty. This act of filial piety won over the villagers. With their help, on the day of the burial, you took your mother's coffin to the main road, bustling with people. Anyone who came close was asked about your father, Kong He's grave. You were determined to bury your parents together, to fulfill my final duty as a son. You were sure the Kong family couldn't ignore this, not if they cared about their reputation. Soon enough, all of Khufu people knew you were the forgotten son of the Kong family. They scorned the Kongs for mistreating us and laughed at them for cutting off their own way. Public opinion was on your side. You were seen as the epitome of filial piety. If the Kong family didn't acknowledge you, they'd be the worst kind of monsters. And just as you planned, your mother was buried in the Kong family's ancestral tomb, and you went from being a peasant to the Kong family's sole heir, changing your name to Kong Q. Becoming a scholar filled you with joy. You thought you was on the path to greatness. You studied everything a noble should know: poetry, history, rites, archery, charioting, and music. You started to look and feel like a noble, but you feel you were still an outsider, unwelcome in many places. At a banquet, a fellow scholar, Yang Hu, threw you out. His haughty look, his words, they still haunt you. He called you unfilial, accused you of using my mother's death for your gain. He said you were nothing but a country bumpkin, good only at playing the victim. As a commoner, you were scorned by your own kind. Now, as a noble, you still face derision. But you, Kong Q, who rose from poverty to nobility, were determined to climb even higher. From a mere scholar to a prestigious official. People's desires are endless. From craving a simple meal to yearning for the finest delicacies. You set your heart on reaching the pinnacle among the nobles, to trample those who had once looked down upon you. You were just a meaner official in a noble house, scrapping by on a meager salary, through observing the elaborate festivals and ceremonies. You notice the deference shown to the masters of ceremonies by even the proudest of nobles. In an era where rituals had lost their essence, the nobility, unfamiliar with the proper rites, needed these masters for their events. This was not just a business opportunity, but a chance to bridge the gap between you and the other nobles. You immersed yourself in the study of rites, and soon became a sought-after master of ceremonies, supplementing your income and gaining renown as a learned man of rituals. With fame came the opportunity to teach the wealthy, earning their gold. Juggling 3 jobs, you finally found comfort and wealth. But wealth wasn't enough. You craved right. In lieu, a lowly scholar like you aspiring to riches and honor was a near impossible dream. However, in those times, one could establish a school of thought and ascend the ranks if their political ideology found favor with the rulers. In a time when new nobles disregarded old rituals, yet a significant faction still revered the Zhou dynasty's customs, you seized the moment. You championed the ideals of governing through ritual, leading with virtue, uniting all under heaven, and creating a harmonious world. This resonated with the old nobility, swelling your ranks and influence. At 50, whether due to your burgeoning fame or your doctrine's appeal, you were appointed a high official in the troubled state of Lu. Now at the helm, you faced a new challenge: how to make a lasting impact. Lu was a land full of renowned scholars and diverse political views, all a barrier to your ambitions. You, a high official without a strong backing, had to quickly assert your dominance. You set your sights on Xiao Shengmao, a respected figure with a large following, some of whom had abandoned you for Xiao Shengmao. His teachings threatened your position. Within a week of taking office, you had him executed at the palace gates. his body displayed for 3 days as a grim warning. His followers scattered. Other scholars silenced themselves, fearing your wrath. Some defected to you, some fled to other countries. Xiao Mao's school crumbled, his teachings vanishing from history. To justify the execution, you concocted charges against Xiao Mao, painting him as morally corrupt and heretical. You spoke with such righteous indignation that your students and supporting families nodded in agreement. Who would have thought that you, a paragon of benevolence and ritual, could be so ruthlessly decisive? Thus you, a once groundless official, cleared the field and cemented your authority. When a student later questioned your adherence to filial piety and ritual, and your harsh treatment of Xiao Mao, you replied with a serene smile, "Wasn't uniting my parents in death an act of filial piety? Isn't sacrificing one person for the peace of a country the highest form of benevolence?" The student stood speechless. In your hands, the definitions of benevolence and righteousness were yours to mold.